So I've seen a few other people around YouTube making Minecraft clones, but they all use shortcuts like 3D engines or languages with classes and garbage collection and namespaces and things you don't really need. But I'm too cool for all that stuff, so I decided to challenge myself and write my Minecraft clone in C. Here's how it went. To get started, as all good programmers should, I made a quick hello world program to check if my build system was set up right, and it totally wasn't. After that, the first thing I needed to do was to get the graphics boilerplate set up, which means opening up a blank window with nothing in it. Thankfully, I have a library called glfw, which does most of the heavy lifting for me here. So after about an hour's work, I had a blank window open. After that, I wrote my input code so I could use the mouse and keyboard later on, and then it was finally time to get something to draw to the screen. Getting just one thing to render in modern OpenGL is actually pretty involved since you have to get things like shaders and buffer objects set up, but I made sure to write the code in such a way so that the same code could be used for later on when I needed to start drawing cubes. After a few failed attempts, I finally got the screen rectangle to draw up in the top right, and that's going to be the start of the first block. But to see the block in 3D, I had to get a 3D camera working, so that was my next task. This involves some pretty complicated linear algebra that would take me a while to implement on my own, so I used another linear algebra library called CGLM to get the camera matrices in the right configuration for me. And once that was working, the last bit of housekeeping I had to do was getting textures to work. So I'm not actually a very good pixel artist at all, but I decided in the spirit of the game to make some programmer art, and I thought it turned out pretty okay. What I was making here was something called the Texture Atlas. For the sake of efficiency, games like Minecraft stitch all of the textures for each block together into one big image like this, called the Texture Atlas, so that the renderer doesn't have to switch between textures every time it draws a different block. The renderer uses the Atlas image by taking the offset of the texture for the block being drawn in the Atlas, and then mapping its pixel space coordinates in this 256 by 256 pixel image into the 0 to 1 UV coordinate space. Those are then the texture coordinates that are used for the block. Here we can finally see that working with a single grass block. From there, my next goal was to get multiple blocks drawn to the screen. This involves a bit of infrastructure setup since it will be really inefficient to treat each block as an individual, and there needs to be some sort of subdivision system. Minecraft uses a system of chunking, where each chunk is 16 by 16 by 256 blocks, and I decided to do something similar. After maybe an hour or so, we can see that in action here with the small issue that we're still drawing faces on the inside of the chunk that aren't actually going to be visible to the player. And you can see from this wireframe render how much extra rendering that is, so it's pretty important for efficiency with a larger world that those extra faces are removed. So I wrote a quick fix for that where each block face checks if the block's neighbor in that direction is solid, and if it is, then the face doesn't render. You can see the wireframe looks a lot better now, and we're not drawing anything that the player isn't going to see. From there on, it was a good hour or so to get the world working, with multiple chunks where extra block faces wouldn't draw in between chunks. And then it's pretty simple to make the world infinite. We just replace chunks that are further from the player with chunks that are nearer to the player as the player moves around in the world. We can see that in action here. As we fly away from far chunks, they get replaced by ones that are nearer to the direction that we're flying. And of course, the next thing to do was to put together a few different block types and mess around with some world generation. The last bit I wanted to finish before making this really look like Minecraft was making block breaking work. This is done by casting a ray from where the camera is looking into the world and finding the coordinates and face of the first block that that ray intersects with. And we can see block breaking at work here in this drawing that I made. And to place blocks, now that we know the coordinates and face of the block that the camera is looking at, we can just place blocks on that face. To test this out, I added a sand block into the game so you can see it at work. After that, I could finally really dig into terrain generation. Generally, the way procedurally generated games like Minecraft do terrain generation is through something called noise, which is a function that takes in a specific number of parameters corresponding to its dimension, in our case 2, and produces a random but smooth map of values in between -1 and 1, which can be mapped into terrain features. In order to generate more than just a smooth height map, techniques of layering noise like octave noise and combined noise can be used to produce more interesting terrain features, like I made here. I decided to follow after Minecraft Classic in this respect, and sample and layer noise the same way that it did because I thought it fit the vibe pretty well with the bright green grass and everything. So I didn't use any real Minecraft lighting in my clone, but there is a quick hack that I wrote where I made the north and south faces of each block a different brightness than the east and west ones in the top and bottom. This was done by giving each vertex some extra color information in addition to its texture information, so when OpenGL is calculating the final color for each block vertex, the vertex is multiplied by the RGB value of the texture. And as you can see here, that makes a big difference to how the terrain looks because we can see individual cubes now instead of just big masses of the same block. The next thing that the terrain really needed was water. Water is actually pretty simple to add to the terrain generation. We just pick a water level, I said 64 blocks, and then if the terrain height ends up being below that level, we fill the rest up with water to that water level. We can see here that that simple addition gives some pretty nice results, but the one thing you're probably noticing is that the water isn't translucent and we can't see the ocean floor below it. Transparency and translucency are notoriously hard problems in 3D graphics, but the first thing I had to do to get this right was to start separating out each chunk's mesh into the solid geometry and the transparent and translucent geometry. That way, I could have two different sets of vertices that I could render differently. The key to good looking transparency in 3D graphics is proper ordering, and you can see here how order matters. We have 4 translucent squares, and the left side the red one is on top of the green one, and on the right side the green one is on top of the red one. These different orderings give different colors where the squares overlap, so it's important to make sure that the rendering order corresponds to the physical order of the squares. This extends out into 3D space, so we need to make sure that the player sees the correct ordering of block faces. But that requires drawing all of the translucent faces from back to front relative to the player, meaning they need to be sorted. This can create issues in Minecraft-like games because there are so many different cube faces that it gets pretty expensive to sort them all every time a frame needs to be drawn. I made the mistake of trying to take a lot of shortcuts around this for performance reasons, and none of them really worked out, so here are a few of the best ones. Here we can see no water at all. Then a few minutes later, whatever this is, it clearly isn't working though. The next attempt gave me an ominous looking black pillar. Then a weird sort of void world. And then my personal favorite, whatever this is. And as the hours went by, I got pretty close, I got a few things working, and I eventually ended up with a half solution like this. You can see from the artifacts in the chunk that the chunks are being rendered in the wrong order relative to the player, so I needed to start rendering them from back to front, sorted by their distance from the camera. And you can see here, I did finally get that working, and then everything looked pretty good. However, the one problem I wasn't actually able to fix even with a few more hours of coding was that block faces also need to be sorted inside of each chunk, so I had to leave that for the next day. To start the next day, I gave up on all of my shortcuts and decided on a proper sorting algorithm to sort the block faces. By sorting every transparent or translucent block face inside of each chunk from back to front relative to where the camera was, this solved all of my issues, but it did create a few performance problems initially. So to combat the performance issues, I came up with a few criteria about when to sort the faces in each chunk. The faces in the chunk the player is in are sorted whenever the player moves between blocks, and the faces in the chunk the player is in and every chunk around that chunk are sorted when the player moves between chunks. This leads to a good trade-off between proper transparency and actual playability. And after around an hour of coding, we can finally see that working. I also added in some throttling so that only one chunk can change its mesh each frame. This helps with making the game feel a little smoother, and it's not really noticeable to the player. From there, I wanted to add some greenery into the world, so I started to work on trees. These are generated by giving every vertical column of blocks that's in a plains biome a 5 in 1,000 chance of generating a tree trunk. And some basic randomness like that generates a pretty nice distribution of trees throughout the world. After that, adding leaves onto trees is as simple as taking the position of the trunk and then building a cube of leaves around that. There is some extra variance in the corners of the leaves though, just so that the world looks a little bit more interesting. This is also about where my pixel artistry kind of falls apart, so I spent some extra time trying to fix up the leaves texture and make it look a little bit nicer. Generating structures like trees though, I started to encounter another really common issue with Minecraft-like games, which is what should happen when a structure like a tree needs to generate leaves across chunk borders, but the chunk hasn't been loaded yet. This can create issues like we see here, where this tree has sort of just been cut off by a chunk border. I ended up going with the solution where the world keeps a list of blocks that have been set in chunks that haven't been loaded yet, and then when each chunk is loaded, it goes through that list and checks if it's had any blocks set before it was generated. And once that was solved, the world was filled with some pretty nice looking trees. The next thing I wanted to get working to give the world a little more life was animated water. So the texture atlas that the world uses is just a single static image that's used for every different block. And even though this atlas is static, there's a trick that we can use to get animations for individual blocks. The key is to duplicate the texture atlas into the number of animation frames that we want, and then make each version of the atlas contain a different frame of each animated block's texture in the same location on the atlas. If we number the animation frames for the water block on each texture atlas and play them in sequence, we can see what's going on. By swapping out the texture atlas 5 times a second like this, the world doesn't need to change any meshes when the animation frame changes, only the global texture needs to change. So after some debugging, I had that working and it looks something like this. From there, I thought I'd get flowers into the game, which required some changes into the meshing code because flowers are sprites and not complete blocks. This means that instead of making a textured cube where there's a flower, the game generates a textured X shape instead. And after adding flower patches into the world generator similarly to how trees are done, this is what they look like. I also decided one flower wasn't quite enough, so I added in a second yellow one. So the next thing I did was getting some ore veins into the terrain generation, and I decided I would add coal and copper. These are generated pretty similarly to the way that trees are done, except there's a random chance they'll be placed inside of each vertical column of blocks rather than on top. Their size is determined randomly, and the likelihood that a block will be found decreases as the blocks get further from the center of the ore vein. So here we can see some copper in the world. And then after a little bit of flying around, I also found some coal. The next thing I did was to mitigate the pop-in effect you can see when flying around, where chunks just sort of come in out of nowhere. To do this, I added some distance fog into the world, so the edge of the world will just kind of fade off into the sky. And again, I had a few funny looking graphical glitches as I was trying to get this to work. I think the effect ended up looking pretty nice though, and it adds a lot to how the game looks. As my time was wrapping up, I added in lava pools with animated textures just like water. And I fixed this up, where liquid blocks were the same height as normal blocks. It makes water and lava look a little better if they're a little below the height of regular blocks. I also made water a little more blue to give it that classic Minecraft look. and I really failed at trying to get a mountain biome into my game. So instead I ended up adding in a couple of new blocks, gravel and clay, which can be found generated randomly at the bottom of the ocean. And the final thing I really needed to do was add in block picking, so I made the keys 1 through 0 pick different blocks, and gave it a quick try. And then added in wooden planks so I could build myself a house. And that was pretty much it. I considered being able to build a house in my Minecraft clone after a little over 12 hours of work a pretty big success. So thanks for watching. I know it's not exactly the most well-featured version of Minecraft ever made, but I think it's pretty good for just a couple of days of work. I've included a link to the source code which I put up on GitHub. Fair warning though, it is a bit of a mess if you take a look at it. Anyway, once again thanks for watching and goodbye.